So, hi, everyone, and welcome to Unpacking Possibility. I'm your host, Tracy Stein, and I'm super excited to have a really interesting guest today, Audrey Hope. Now, you may have heard of her already because she has an award-winning YouTube show, Hope for Relationships. She's a counselor and an addiction and trauma specialist. She's a psychic medium. So she kind of does it all. So I'm going to let Audrey tell you more about her story. But sit back and relax, and we're ready to start the show.
Tracy, it's so good to be here.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I just feel right away you're a very authentic person. And that's my whole thing, bringing people back to authenticity. Here we are wearing masks. And it really is a good allegory for what's happening. We need to take off our masks.
No, absolutely.
and really be our authentic selves. So I always say that, no matter what training I've had or what experience I've had, I'm mostly a New Yorker and don't mess with me.
Two native New Yorkers here.
Yeah, right. And it really sits well because you need it. Because sometimes healing is just common sense, really is.
Okay.
And using your instinct, your street smarts, one could say.
Well, I want to hear your story, Audrey, because you have such an interesting combination of interests and skills. And you sound like you do really interesting work at Seasons in Malibu as well. So I'm going to let you I want you to share with us your journey.
Wow. Well, the first thing that really hits me, Tracy, is that, I was really alone in the soul spiritual work when I started. I mean, I feel like it was a frontier that was unexplored. I worked at a lot of different rehabs and, I said, we got to work on the soul. We got to work on the spiritual piece. And so I sort of found my own way in it, so now the world is catching up. But at the beginning, I had to have a lot of courage to work with doctors, pharmacologists, all the different modalities and just say, hey, wait a minute, what about the soul? So I guess my story begins in Brooklyn. I'm born in Brooklyn, lived in New York, went to school at Ithaca College. And I was always, feeling inside my heart that I was here for a greater purpose. And so I remember sitting, listening to my records and knowing even at a young age that I just have to get ready. And so I always followed the yellow brick road to what was next. I studied in England a little bit, and I just went on this healing journey with teachers and very strange teachers too, that were teaching me about the soul. And so I think that my recommendation to anyone who feels they want to have a better life is to just let go and surrender to the path, and the path will come to you. So the magic has when it came out of the blue. So I started when I came out to LA, I was always acting and healing and doing all that. I remember someone said, just sit in your living room, let go, and tell the universe you're ready for greater things. And I did this experiment. I really did. I said, okay, just show me the way. And I wasn't going to, I was only going to answer the phone or the door, anything with my hand. And I got a phone call from a friend, and she said, come with me to Malibu. I'm going to this rehab. And the next thing I know, it's 20 years later. Those kind of things, I know you work with intuition, but I'll take it a step further, is following that still small voice within on your path, because life purpose is not something you could really plan for. I mean, everything I do is an Audrey thing. I could be totally myself. No one blocked the way to it. The universe opened up to me doing my own experimentation with it. And so if you follow that, you will be led to a beautiful life.
So Audrey, I'm going to grab a mundane thread, if I may, in that story, because it's a really interesting story. But you started out in acting.
Yes.
Okay. So you were a performing artist before you went into counseling.
Yes, I was. And as
And
I told you,
spirituality.
it's very similar because you're studying the human nature, right? So I always wanted to act for a reason too, because I knew I was a special light person. I always knew that. It's the truth. And I knew that if I could get that kind of recognition, I could create shows and spread my healing, what I really wanted to do. So it was also a purpose for that. And I have pitched shows and all my life because especially when it comes to women, I started out with a woman's show, Real Women, positive role models for women, because I worked in a women's clothing store to support myself. And I couldn't believe how unhappy women were. They didn't like their bodies. And I said, I have to go on TV. I've got to tell them they're brainwashed because of the media, because of the history. And so I started this show about spiritual issues. This is way before Oprah.
Oh, wow.
And I got to meet some amazing people who later became famous. I mean, it was Joan Borisenko, Marianne Williamson came on. Oh, absolutely. We did a blue screen, and I just started saying, let's talk about the voices that need to be heard, and what we really need to know about spirituality and living a better life. And so, I went on TV and just started bringing the information that I thought would be transformational to women. That's how it started.
So interesting. And then, so you're on TV, you have a show, you're really addressing the issues that impact women, even the very common everyday issues like feeling uncomfortable in our own bodies or unsure of how to use our voices. And then after that, you wind up at Seasons and you start.
Well, yes, I was at Passages too. I was 8 years there when they started. Oh, wow. And then I was at other places too. People would invite me. I worked in Denver. I worked, I was hired out. I worked in businesses to help businessmen, be more successful. I mean, the basis of this is how to use your energy to create a great life, right? So if you could learn the secrets of power, and to connect to that, like connect the iPhone plug, I say, connect to the light and really use that, you could create love, success, happiness, and healing. So, then I created another TV show on, I did YouTube way before anybody else did. I was on the Wisdom Channel, and then I switched it over to YouTube. And I'm laughing now how popular YouTube is now. But I wanted to put little nuggets of healing. I really believe that it's nuggets. I'll tell people in the rehab, don't take everything. Take one or two things that is transformational, and make it simple, make healing simple. So I wanted to document some core at the root of the root things that people could do to really change their lives. And so that's why I did Hope for Relationships. And now I have a new show I'm doing, which well, I could talk about all the shows that got picked up that there was a show on energy that I was going to do. Some of it had to do with dark energies, working with addicts. I've learned a lot about that. But I decided I didn't want to do that show. That was called The Demon Huntress. And I didn't do that. But I am doing now The Spiritual Huntress, which was just picked up. We're developing it. And it's kind of like a detective agency where we investigate issues from the level of the soul.
How interesting.
Yeah. So we have we have all different modalities. One of the things about Seasons that's incredible is that it's not just one thing. We have every modality, every slice of pie. And that is what really helps, is when you work as a team and everybody contributes to the team. And I've always liked that.
So the
I've
medical
always liked,
piece,
yes,
the
medical piece,
psychological piece, the spiritual piece.
hypnotherapy.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And
It's
now EMDR and now
okay.
neurofeedback. All of these things now are really amazing so that we can get the whole rounded view of healing. And my piece is the soul. Because sometimes I'll see something that is so beyond the rational mind. I mean, I have so many cases that are so wild. And when it's weird, it's in my wheelhouse.
Well, I'm wondering if you feel comfortable talking about, and you could talk generally if it's not, if there's not a specific case that you can disguise and share. But how does soul work come into working with addiction or working with trauma?
Oh my God, that's where it really gets fun. I really truly believe, Tracy, that addiction is not where we need to stop. It's a way in to enlightenment. It's finally being on your knees. Whatever gets you to your knees to the gate of healing works. So I always feel that it's, addicts are one step away from enlightenment because what do they have to lose? They've lost everything. So now they're open. Now they're desperate. And now the gateway can open. So I always thought it's an invitation to ascend. And I'm not attached to any concepts of addiction, shame, and guilt. I feel is very dangerous because what it does is the worst thing that happens in healing is to turn against yourself. So I always say it's not what other people do to us that's the problem, but what we do to ourselves because of it. And if you grew up in shame and then you become an alcoholic, then you're really in shame. You're really in your issue, right? So we got to get rid of that and get down to what's really, really happening. So, the soul work is really bringing a person back to themselves. And the problem and the issues just made you be on your knees to do the work.
So when you say be on your knees, you mean like surrendering to saying,
yes,
I need help and I'm ready to
help.
change. And I can't keep doing this any longer in this way.
It's a wake-up call. We're all in a wake-up call now, Tracy. I mean, I know like with what's going on with people right now are suffering from so much trauma from the last few years. We're really busy. I'm busy in my practice. You must be busy because people are really traumatized.
Well, I was saying this to someone else recently. I feel like I can't remember another time in my lifetime when the world or our country felt like it was in so much incredible turmoil. There's so much polarization. We're dealing with a very scary pandemic, which a portion of people don't really understand well enough to take seriously. That's a whole other issue right there. And I think people are looking for greater meaning.
See the opening of pain? And I remember doing spiritual work years ago, and we knew something was going to happen. We knew, this is the golden age, right? It's been predicted. And all the teachers have gone. They left. We're the ones who have to do the work now. So those of us on this path have been prepared for something. Who knew it was going to come in this form? But we knew we were getting ready for something. And when there's great upheaval and pain, there again is the opportunity for enlightenment, mass enlightenment. So people who get too involved in the 3D reality of what's happening, they need a higher perspective. So the soul work is a higher perspective. Why am I in this situation? Why is the world in this situation? Why am I an addict? And that is the deeper meaning and the higher perspective that I bring to the table.
So Audrey, can I ask you a question about that? Because I'm thinking that people listening might get the essence of what you're saying about feeling a connection to something greater than the self.
Yes.
Really returning kind of to this spiritual kind of root within us. But in your office, somebody comes to you. I'm wondering if you can give an example. Are there exercises that you do with people, whether it's journaling or imagery or, movement or something that helps people to kind of make some sort of breakthrough or gain some insight that they didn't have before?
Well, it's a magical process. I don't think I have just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's different from everyone. I'll sit with someone and just say, how are you? But I do know that the process works. I do know from doing this long enough that I'll end up at the core, even though we start out, at this place, point A. We're always going to end up for me, at the root of the root, which could be the karma sometimes, which is the deeper theme, the soul theme that repeats and repeats. And that if you don't heal it, it's just going to keep on going. That's what I call the soul wound, right? So I look for the repeat in the patterns.
Okay. So somebody comes in and they have been doing this again and again in one relationship after another.
Yes.
And, maybe the addiction is both a source of conflict, but it's also a symptom of this incredible pain.
Right. I don't really talk about the addiction and what they're doing daily. I think leave that to the addiction person.
Okay.
I'm into where you're suffering. Tell me about your suffering and why you're suffering. Sometimes, and then that leads to sometimes karma with the mother, karma with the father, some story, and also energy. Energy is a big piece. Now we have a professional house and these doctors are coming in. They're exhausted. I have a team now they've just been on the front lines of COVID.
Right.
And they are exhausted. They do not know how to energetically take care of themselves. So I teach them sometimes things about nature, sit in nature, because we all understand nature, right?
Right.
There's no problem with that. We all look at the beautiful flower and go, we all agree it's beautiful, but grounding techniques, which we first clear the energy. I always think that's important. So where you're hooked into someone else, we have to clear, protect, and align the energy. Because sometimes anxiety will just be overload of too much, like these doctors. They're coming in with too much, and then the next day they gather, they have more. So we have to empty the closet. So first I teach them to empty the energy on an energetic level, negativity, who they're attached to. Look at hooks, chains, and cords. Close your eyes and see and they all see it. They all see who they're attached to. And then we clear that, getting you back into the light. And then from there, from a neutral place, begin to really clear the issues.
You're making me think as you talk about, especially about these incredibly overwhelmed healthcare providers. I mean, I feel like my statement about that doesn't even do it justice. But
so true.
But overwhelmed people in general, especially people who are overwhelmed by their interactions with other people. Sometimes people will have some people are really comfortable with the terms around energy, and other people, it's less comfortable for them. But if you talk about it psychologically, and even metaphorically, like you were saying, the hooks people have in us, or the chains, or the attachments, we could just as easily say from a psychological perspective, when our emotional energy or our mental energy is still connected to a difficult or traumatic encounter or experience with someone or relationship theme, it is like being tethered to something that weighs us down. It is. Yes. So even if someone's not able to talk about energy, which is a whole other kind of level, right? They can kind of get it.
Well, you're bringing up a good point, because, we've had psychiatrists that have been in treatment, right? I don't have a problem anymore, like them thinking I'm frou-frou or out there. I no more, because I'll just 5-10 minutes, they'll kind of see that I'm, I know what I'm talking about, and they do understand the suffering. And there's so many of these doctors are into diagnosing. And I understand it. But I'm not into the diagnosis. That I'll leave to someone else too.
Right.
I'll go into, sometimes I'll see the light of someone who's had every diagnosis under the sun. And I'll just be astounded. I have 2 clients right now that when I saw them, I was astounded. I was astounded by their light and their beauty. And they were really, really suffering. And they're doing both of them, just these 2 I'm thinking of now, have gone on. They become healers themselves. It is just extraordinary. But I saw it right away because I see from the level of the soul.
It's so interesting. Just we are in such a time of transition where people are really looking for something extra, something that captures more of them, that is more kind of inclusive, of a more integrative kind of way of looking at healing and looking at people. So rather than one way or one box, more kind of like, I've said this before, like spokes on a wheel, like all these different aspects of our lives that need attention and nurturing.
Yes, especially with addicts that are really tired of AA, the concepts of that. And, they just are so happy to not be shamed.
That's an excellent point.
Happy. They feel so relieved.
Well, because people do really shame people who are struggling, especially with addiction.
Yes. Terrible. And so when they see someone's coming at them in another way, like, oh my God, they're invited to really transform. So I'm all about the alchemy. Spirituality is about alchemy, changing one form, I say, like caterpillar to butterfly, right? Once we do that, we don't need the story anymore. So who are we without the story, right? Who are we without mom did this and dad did this? We are these light beings. And it is important to understand how powerful that we really are. It's been taken from us, Tracy. We've been truly brainwashed to think we need someone else to give us this. And we already have it, like Dorothy and Oz, right? It's already there. So if you can get people back to that energy, that battery of light that's inside, then you can go forward and burn the story. Of course, you have to be ready to burn it. You can't do it too fast. We need the story, but then we need to burn it.
So you're making me think of something. In preparation for our interview, I listened to a few of your other interviews, and I was very taken by your interview with Jeff Lewis. And just so you know, I barely watch TV and I don't know what I'm doing with the rest of my time. I've tried to figure that out, but I do remember him from his real estate shows. And, he's so open that, that you see, as a psychologist, it's impossible for me to watch a show without noticing things maybe through a slightly different lens. And he's an intense personality, but there's something incredibly endearing about him as well.
Totally.
And you had such nice chemistry with him. And I thought, it was very conversational, but I found myself thinking, wow, you really get what's going on with him, and he feels seen and heard. So I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, but when you're talking about relationships and shame and trauma, you seem to really hit the nail on the head with him about why he's in the patterns he's in.
We had a session before the show.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Because his grandmother was coming to me and would not leave me alone. So when he called me on the phone to get ready, I said, I don't care what you say. I got to tell you because I can't. My head is just filled with this information. So I just was like open and gave it to him. And some of the things that I said really came true about, what I said about the relationship. So that was before even So, that was a blessed thing that happened. And then when I went on the show, he gave me the wrong address. He had moved, he had just moved. So I got there just in time, but it was a wonderful experience. And then all these people, I'm still dealing with people who are calling me from that show.
Oh, wow.
And I met such incredible people.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah, they just listen and they love it. And they're so hungry for that spiritual stuff. So that was a true gift.
But because I know you are someone who really places high value on people having good relationships and being aware of those traumatic things from their other relationships, whether with family or other partners or whatever, that really contribute to these negative patterns. And
yes,
when you were sitting with Jeff, I mean, I imagine you sitting with him. Actually, I realized I only saw, I heard the audio.
We were sitting there. We were at his table in his new house.
Okay. I realized in my mind you were sitting there, but
there was no Zoom. We were all there.
Okay. But you could feel the shift just listening about how it was so transformative, just compassion and seeing him, and that's what he got from you. And you're wow. Right. People really need that. They really need to.
You're bringing unbelievable. You're touching my heart so deeply, because I want to talk about some of the celebrities. Some of the celebrities.
Sure.
Like when I started, I was in the room with these really famous people,
and they're okay with us sharing.
Some of them
stories?
I'm not allowed to say.
Okay.
I'm not allowed to say. There were only those that really came out and said
okay.
it. But recently, someone passed. I was very sad about. Now her name is escaping me, which don't understand.
This is someone you saw as a client.
Yeah, years ago, 15 years ago. And I loved her very much because she was very much attracted to the light, and she was amazing. And I was very saddened to hear that she passed. The name will come to me.
Okay, that's all right.
I swear to God that a letter from her appeared on my email.
After she passed.
That's correct.
So it just kind of showed up in your inbox.
It was from 15 years ago.
So interesting.
I copied it, pasted. I couldn't believe it. Warmed my soul because I was asking about her. And then I also worked with Les McEwen, who passed away. He was from the Bay City Rollers.
Ah, okay.
And I loved him. I actually helped him. He was abused by his manager.
I didn't know that.
And we just, discovered whatever. And he came out with that. And I was in the car going home from work, and I heard a song from the Bay City Rollers, and I found out he passed.
Oh,
but it was, so I could talk to you for hours about the psychic level of things that is just beyond intuition, right? Yeah. Where I would just see, you don't have to worry about your miscarriage. The baby just wants to come at this time because you have to go through a secret of the abuse you suffered you never spoke of. So why are you sad? Because it just needs to clear. And so there's always a reason for something. And then getting the other side, because I asked the universe, please let me help people. And sometimes they need to talk to their relative on the other side.
So you're saying that when you're sitting with somebody doing counseling,
yes,
that often intuitive information comes in that is helpful in getting to the heart of what's going on for them, or helps them reframe something painful in a way that they can now work through it.
Well, I'll give you an example. Something that's very recent. A client that has a curse. You know what he's cursed with? Mm-mm. The energy of too much, getting everything so easily. He is devastated by that. Devastated from getting everything. And I saw it as a real curse. Now, thank God I have a team of people who understand that I can say that, and they'll understand it, because the proof is in the pudding, right? Right? If you're bringing that up
Sure.
And then someone comes in, like I had this client, she was devastated from the loss of her son who passed. And she was so spiritual. And we went into the level of spirituality and why he passed. She was fine. On that level, she healed very quickly from that. So it was, to the psychologist, it was a little strange for them. What happened? So you see the realness of that. It's like, okay, what do you say about that? And she's feeling better. So I just offered a spiritual perspective, you see?
So it sounds also like you have been fortunate enough to have clients who are receptive to an intuitive or a spiritual interpretation or discussion.
I've also had clients that weren't receptive.
Related, kind of tangentially related to what you just were talking about people kind of changing the way they direct their own lives. You've spoken about using tools like manifesting tools,
yes,
or manifestation.
Oh, yes.
In relationships. And you think you believe strongly that even if somebody's in a relationship already, that they should be focused on what it is they really want to bring about. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about that.
I really love the idea of marrying the self.
Okay.
Yeah. And then being a great cake. And then the relationship is the whipped cream. Okay. Because that's the way to a secret relationships. I love to help people get married. I love it. And I've done amazing with it. I have helped people find their soulmates. Absolutely. I've been writing a book about it.
Okay.
I hope to have the time to finish it. It's The Science of Love. I absolutely believe you mentioned practical tools. There's a science to it. Absolutely. For anybody of your listeners who want to find great love or want to improve their relationship, if you follow a system, you will have it. Okay. Let's bring it down to a New York level.
Yeah,
absolutely. Definitely. Because I could feel that you want to know about the practical. And
yeah,
I'm all about the practical.
Because you know what? Because a lot of times I think people have a hard time visualizing, well, what can I do? You know,
we love that. And, when I do news, they're always leading me, get to the, you got to have the points. Okay. you got to get to the point. Okay. So here's the first thing. Okay. You have got to make a decision that you will no longer take crumbs. It's a vow. I'm done sacrificing, settling, or keeping silent. I'm going to do whatever it takes to have the best life and the best love. I'm going to commit to that. Okay. And that is a personal decision. If you just want to go out and date, good for you. But if you want a soulmate, that requires work. That requires that you need to be brave and look and heal every single one of your own issues, because we're a world of blaming. We're victims. We have to stop blaming people, and we need to take the mirror to ourselves and start to look at all the relationships and find the pattern. Where am I? What's the same in all of them? Where do I end up in all my relationships? Why do I keep manifesting the same thing? Even in my other relationships, maybe it comes through a boss. Maybe it comes through, relationship with your child. Where do I stand in all that? And that's the soul information, what you need to learn for yourself. So you have to do that kind of work. Okay. And you have to commit to that kind of work. You have to heal everything. You have to be willing to be alone in empty space. People are so afraid of being alone. It's so powerful to be in the void.
So glad you said that.
Yeah, because it's all one. You're alone. You throw out everything from the past. You sit and you say, I'm going to be in a launching pad and I'm going to start again. I'm going to begin again from the empty space.
I like that you said that, because I think what happens is, and I'm sure you've seen this as well, where people who are so uncomfortable being in their own company can become very dependent or very panicked about whether somebody will stay in the relationship with them or not. And they will settle for people who aren't necessarily going to hold them in the same, with the same respect and care that they really crave.
Yes.
Because the energy is of fear and desperation rather than of, I like who I am. And that's kind of when you were talking about the relationship being the mirror of what's going on inside of you. That's kind of what it made me think.
Yes. And you need to be brave. This is not an easy path, Tracy. You know, one of the things I say is, where's the manual on the game? Like, how do you play the game of life? And so when you become more in the light path, more authentic, you better get ready, because everything you need will come to your front door, and it will not be fun. So sometimes people say, why does this happen to me? Because you took the college classes. You didn't just come in and take elementary school. So when you're on this path, it's really hard. You will get socked with everything that's untrue, not right, needs to be healed, and needs to be looked at. And you cannot avoid it. There's no avoiding anymore. I think years ago we could, no more. Things are coming straight to our front door. It's the time for that. So what do people do? They want to hide trauma. They want to put it away under the rug. You can't. You need to take it out, face it, and be brave to face it all, right?
And when you talk about being brave and courageous with trauma, I think that people who have some sort of spiritual sense of connection can find that that is a little less scary for them, because they feel that there's a connection to something. It's not just all on them. There is a connection to something greater than them, or maybe even to a spiritual community. And so it just made me think of that, about, the kind of the why, or how that factors in the spirituality,
which is the why,
being strong rather.
Yeah. Why am I in this relationship? There's the question. What am I supposed to learn? Not he did this, she did this. What am I supposed to learn from my soul? So it's looking at relationships from a soul level to see what I am supposed to learn. And then when you get that, then it doesn't become as heartbreaking. You see? Because there's a perspective change right there. What am I supposed to see so I don't repeat it? Remember Pema Chodron's book? I just read it again. When Things Fall Apart.
So tell our listeners a little bit about
anybody that's suffering right now from real trauma. It's the most amazing book. And when I was moving, I found it again and read it again. And it's so extraordinary. It's about being where you're at without the mask. Like, if you're in pain, it's a blessing. That is the work. You don't try to hide it and make it easier. You just relax into it. It's part of the journey, right? It's part of the journey. The suffering is part of the journey. And we're always trying to deny the suffering. Fall into it and allow it and respect it. It's going to teach you something.
So don't wallow in it, and don't try and push it away.
Don't push it away. People suffer from pushing things away. And that's the big problem with trauma, just trying to push it away and pretend it's not there. And it will come up. If you push it away for 20 years, it'll look like something else.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but it's there at the root. And even John Sarno, who wrote the book on back pain, said, he doesn't really do surgery. He gets to the emotions, because it'll make us sick. What makes us sick? Emotions. Our lives make us sick, which is a really important question. Why are we sick?
And what is getting in the way of positive, healthy change, whether it's in a relationship or relationship with yourself? And actually, back to your first point about, manifesting something good in the relationship, knowing very clearly what you want.
Yes,
I thought that
you have to know what you want. What are the top 5? What's top 5? Non-negotiable. Some people are spiritual people, but they don't put it on their list. Like, I hope he makes money. I hope he's got a lot, good looking, whatever. But what about like being able to really see you and be, have a spiritual connection? So you got to put it in your order. You got to order from the waiter, you got to put it down. It's very sacred to put it down on paper.
Yeah.
And really you have to know what you want and what you don't want. And the other thing with love, it's got to be rooted in self-love. If you are going into a relationship without loving yourself, you are walking into disaster. Because then you need something so badly that you'll lose yourself, and then you'll sacrifice just to hold on. So I call it the sovereignty of the self, which is the boundaries of self-love. Every woman needs to have, and every man needs to have boundaries of how they will behave. I will not take crap anymore from anyone. I will never be mean to myself. I will never silence myself. I will never sell myself out. I will follow my heart and my soul, and I will do everything it takes to have great love, and I won't stop until I get it. Hundreds of boundaries.
And like, it sounds kind of like a code of conduct.
Yes, a code, declaration.
How I'm going to be in this relationship.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely true. And yes.
Sorry.
I was gonna say, another thing is belief systems. How many people get married because they feel that their parents wanted them to?
I'm sure quite a few.
Right. Or they have to do this because they've been programmed. And unless you take the time to investigate why you want what you want, and it doesn't matter if the parent has gone or passed on.
True. Very true.
There's nothing about death that stops this. It's the energy of that's still with you, that haunts you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think somebody who is very conflicted about a relationship can unconsciously do things to sabotage it. So they say that they want something, and then they get it, and they either feel not deserving, or it's not really what they want, and so forth. I mean, it sounds like that's kind of part of what you're saying too, is that if you're not clear on every level about what you want and why you want it and who it's really for, it's just really hard to sustain a healthy relationship.
Right.
So can I ask you a question, Audrey? Because, we've talked about individual relationships. We've talked about relationships with the self, and kind of obliquely referred to kind of the state of the world. So how can we take that spiritual nature and that self-respecting, loving nature, and also bring that level of respect and love and connection into our relationships on a larger scale? And that might be kind of too broad a question. I don't know if anybody has the answer.
Well, I think you need to stay in your own egg. And you need to be, keeping your eyes kind of, on your heart, and you have to connect up to the light. And you have to live with a shield around you and not pay too much attention to the outside world or to others. And when those lights are activated and turned on, the chakras are actually a secret to healing is to turn on our lights. Our central nervous system is made, the Kundalini energy, it's made to be activated to turn on who we really are. So when the lights are sort of, think of it like electricity, when they're turned on and it becomes, and you have even a visual of the light inside, all your cells are made of light, and you keep that, it kind of keeps the outside world from affecting you so much. And then you can just be the lighthouse and shine your light out to others, which is important to make sure that the world, the media, the relatives, don't take us down and dim our light. And I think that's the secret to it, is to stay planted in that kind of light and live in that joy no matter what. So the words are no matter what. And the practice is, how do I stay in that no matter what? And that's the piece. And then and then from there, you also open up to higher guidance. So I teach people to connect up with higher guidance so they'll listen to themselves.
Can I ask, is there, I'm wondering, is there something that I didn't ask that I should have asked, or something else you would like to leave our listeners with?
Well, you just a beautiful interviewer. You got me talking about so many things that are really close to my heart, which is my life purpose. You know, I would say, be quiet. I would say, my advice would be to sit in a chair or sit by your altar or sit wherever you go to be alone and say to the universe, I'm ready. Show me the way. And I'm going to surrender and let go and let you guide me. And really do that deep surrender and watch what happens. You can't go wrong with that deep surrender, or even surrender your love life if you want to find someone. Or even if you have a difficult marriage, I'm going to surrender that. Show me the way. Should we be together? Like, get higher help, higher help.
And look for signs of clarity.
Yes.
In your inner experience.
Yes. That's like, where should I work? And then all of a sudden you get fired. You do that prayer, let's say, and then you get fired. And why did I get fired? Because you said the prayer, I want something better. And watch what comes out of the blue. And do that experiment, and you cannot go wrong. And that will lead you to an amazing place. And don't rush, don't block it. Just really be in that experiment and watch what happens.
Well, Audrey, it's been so lovely to speak with you today.
Lovely to meet you.
So many interesting things. Where can people find out more about you?
Well, audreyhope.com, and then my YouTube Audrey Hope Now. And then, hopefully my Spiritual Huntress TV show, which we're developing, will be on soon. And, and then we'll share more of these secrets.
Well, good luck with everything. And thank you again for being on today.
It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
So nice to meet you. This has been another episode of Unpacking Possibility. If you like the show, please make sure to like and share and follow and leave a comment. And until next time, I wish you all the very best.